So, welcome to this video about the lunar eclipse that we're going to be having on May 5th of this year. So, this is our second eclipse in the first pair of eclipses for 2023. And so this is occurring at 12:39 p.m. Central Time and then 1:39 p.m. 1:39 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's happening at 14 degrees and 59 minutes of Scorpio and Taurus. So it's right in the middle. The sun moved into Taurus on April 20th. And now it's right in the middle of this sign. And then fast forward to later on in May when we get the new moon in Taurus. And so, which is not an eclipse. But so we have this, opening of May 5th, Cinco, de Mayo in Mexico. There's going to be an eclipse happening on this day. It's also around the time of the of a British coronation, which you can find out about, read about, watch about. There was an astrologer that I was listening to, Penny Thornton, who was talking about, showing the charts for the coronation, and I thought it was very interesting. And that's set to take place on May 6th. So, you can find out about that because some of the things that I may be talking about may tie into that somewhat. So, this is also happening right in the middle of Mercury retrograde. So, Mercury went retrograde. It's going to go retrograde. I'm filming this on April 16th, so it's going to go retrograde on April 21st. And Mercury retrograde is going to be in Taurus, and so we're looking back at our financial situations, our values, what brings us comfort and security, what are the resources that we need to be grounded and stable, and what are the foundations that we're setting for ourselves, during this particular time, and really getting into the simple rhythms of the earth. I have a whole nother video about that particular Mercury retrograde. But getting into this particular eclipse, recall last year, we had on May 15th and 16th, we had a lunar eclipse in Scorpio. That was a total lunar eclipse. This one's a partial lunar eclipse. And there's two things in common about last year's lunar eclipse in Scorpio and this year's lunar eclipse. They're both occurring in, the month of May. That's one thing that they have in common, early May, early to mid-May, within the first 20 days of May. Jupiter is close to changing signs. So last year on May 10th, it went to Aries, and then it re-entered Aries on December 20th. It's going to move into Taurus on May 16th. This year, Jupiter is going to enter Taurus about 11 days later after the eclipse. And Mercury is retrograde for both of these eclipses, both the lunar eclipse in Scorpio last year and this year. And both of these are south node eclipses, because eclipses either fall on the north node, the moon has to be conjunct or close to the north node or the south node. And this can be for both the solar and lunar eclipse. So solar and lunar eclipses, first of all, correspond to the new moons and full moons. A solar eclipse is a new moon, but it's even major, new beginning, fresh starts, initiating something new, those kinds of themes happening. And then at full moon, which is about releasing stuff and things coming to light, and then high emotions, and you can really amplify that in really huge and profound ways with a lunar eclipse. So the eclipse on the 19th and 20th of April was a North Node eclipse, because the North Node was at 4 degrees of Taurus, which was very close to the Sun and Moon at 29 degrees of Aries. And then this eclipse is a South Node eclipse because the South Node's in Scorpio. And so this, the moon is in Scorpio. And so, we can take all the themes of the lunar eclipse, and this can be extra potent and karmic and serious and significant when we look at, what Scorpio is about. And so lunar eclipses deal with, again, endings, transitions, releasing what no longer serves you. It deals with closures. And this is all fated, like you were meant to close out these chapters of your lives. And so there's information about lunar eclipses and solar eclipses down in the description, below. But, eclipses are turning points. They're really, transformative. And, you have a new moon and full moon, and again, turning up the volume, for each of those. So there's information. And there's astronomy about eclipses that you can find. And so, the big themes for this particular eclipse is about releasing old toxic patterns that don't, work for you anymore. It's about being willing to do something different, because if you do what you did, you're going to get what you got. And it's about being willing to move in a new direction, and being willing to transform and evolve and be uncomfortable so that you can, become better, and you can, really heal what, you're going through and what you're working through. And, any kind of wound, any kind of, just any kind of, any toxicity, any, anxiety, any, negative feeling or state of being to be in. And Scorpio can shine a light on what is truth, like what is, really going on here. And even though a part of you may be resistant to that change and transformation, and you feel uncomfortable with it, but it's about being willing to, for chaos and, crisis to probably come about, for risk-taking, to die and to, to kill away and to purge the old and the unhealthy, of what's not sustainable, what doesn't work for you anymore. It's about, being willing to let that fall away, and then, move into new ways of being. So, what no longer serves you, the South Node's in Scorpio, so it deals with this theme that we've been working with for the past, since January 2022, about releasing the old baggage from the past and doing shadow work. And the nodes travel retrograde. And so we have a scroll of a certain, wound or trauma or whatever, which is the Scorpio South node that we're sort of, it's unraveling, and we need to heal all that to move into love, security, peace, pleasure, joy, being grounded, being in alignment with our values and what's important to us, which is that Taurus North node of destiny. So it's really illuminating that baggage, that stuff, are unhealthy attachments. You know, and we can, do the cleanse ourselves of all those kinds of things, and let all that go. And so the themes of the Taurus Scorpio axis Taurus deals with what's simple. Money, it corresponds to that. It's, ruled by Venus, which, rules money. It rules what is simple, the physical reality. It deals with what's available to you with your five senses. It deals with, physical security. What are the things that you need to feel content, happy, and taken care of on a physical level? Aries comes in and starts the whole zodiac. But then, now we need home. Now we need food. Now we need, security for us to put in the practical steps to manifest what we need to. We have to get real about what we need and feed, nurture, and take care of ourselves on a physical level. And then Scorpio deals with, security, but it deals with really, it deals with, emotional, security. It deals with the definition of that. It deals with, relationships with others that we need, relationships, intimacy, to feel, emotionally secure. It deals with, desire also, which is, as they say, the root of all suffering. And the whole thing about, the Buddha, and, acceptance of what is, and, not holding on to those, attachments. All those things come in really strongly here, where if we look at a Scorpio lunar eclipse, it can correspond quite a bit, maybe, more so we can take a look at the Taurus North node, and then with the Taurus lunar eclipse, maybe that Taurus South node, Scorpio North node, those things can come into play with a Taurus lunar eclipse. And of course, 9 years from now, the North node is going to be in Scorpio, the South node is going to be in Taurus. So, So Scorpio deals with depth. It's a deep, an intense sign. What's healing at a soul level. We want to get real and raw and authentic with Scorpio. And Scorpio is Libra through Pisces, is the other. Aries through Virgo is the self, so dealing with, your money, Taurus, other people's money, Scorpio. So those are, those are the big themes. And, what are you continuing to do that's, no longer serving you is a big question here. Now, the aspects of what is happening with this. The Sun is in conjunction to Uranus, which has been in Taurus since 2018. And so this is about freedom. This is about liberation. Now you can liberate yourself and move, radically move from the same things that you've been doing and chasing down the new and exciting, where you feel like it's time to change and it's time to live a life that's more true to who you really are on an individual level, and to not continue to be fed by the conditioning and those influences and the impacts and those negative arenas of the people in your life that you feel aren't serving you and aren't helping you on your spiritual journey of evolution and fulfillment. So that deals with that. um, and it also can deal with viewing new ways of doing things, trying new things that are true for you. It's not doing the same thing, but I'm breaking out of these patterns. Time to find new ways of breaking out of the same patterns. And so this is sort of a assessment to see how are you learning and growing from the themes and the lessons that you've been learning and that we've been working with collectively and individually since January of 2022. This is the last eclipse, and the last eclipse in Scorpio for the Taurus Scorpio polarity and nodal axis for now until 9 years later, about 9 years later, from now. And it's really to see how far we've gone in the final sort of final where we can really purge what doesn't serve us anymore, again with that. And where we've planted a new seed on the new moon solar eclipse in Aries, we've initiated something, and then now we're going back to see what has to go. And then Mercury's retrograde, we can reevaluate our relationship with physical security, and those themes when it comes to Taurus during this particular lunar eclipse. And then we can really move forward on that new moon in Taurus later in May when Mercury goes direct. So it deals with that. And then Venus is making a square to Neptune. And this is really where, and I've spoken about this on the video I had about, Venus and Gemini, where we're wearing rose-colored glasses and we need to take them off. Now, the things here are kind of different than, what I just was discussing. But it deals with seeing, over idealistic, seeing a sort of fog or an illusion of a relationship or a thing, movie, situation, and not seeing it for what it really is. And there can be a confusing and delusion influence, nebulous influence with the energy of Neptune, or a fog. You're driving in the fog and you can't see what you're looking at clear enough. And of course, when Neptune goes retrograde, our sense of being grounded in reality is heightened, because in a more negative sense, when planets retrograde, they're not in their full, power. So, it is an opportunity to use more kind of real logical left brain, thinking, views of living life when Neptune goes retrograde. Now, it could be being taken advantage of. That could be another theme, being swept away by a certain current of, having so much empathy and compassion and understanding and desire to help the partner. Because Pisces is opposite Virgo in that axis of service and health and really humility. And Pisces is more spiritual servant, and then Virgo is more logical, left brain. These are the supplements you need. These are the tips that you can use for a more organized space and getting your work done easier. That's Virgo. And so, being swept away, being taken advantage of, where you can really look at, and maybe that can be a pattern that some of you watching this may need to release, with what's going on, is relationship patterns with probably being conflict avoidant or bending over backwards, or those types of things. So we can look at that with Venus square Neptune too, being taken advantage of. And it's important to develop the trust, in relationships. Without trust, where can you get? And Scorpio really looks at trust. And maybe there's some videos and articles I've read and things I've learned about Scorpios. They have trouble trusting. Well, as far as learning about the Scorpio North Node placement in the natal birth chart, Taurus can be really fixed and stubborn, and I know what I know, and I'm going to be sticking to it. This is the way that I've always been done. And Scorpio is about transformation and merging with somebody else, and really connecting with somebody else at a deeper level. So I find that really interesting, and this may be a both and with this, and seeing the betrayal of where that particular person in that relationship has betrayed your trust, and maybe this lunar eclipse will illuminate where there is not that trust in those relationships, where it has to be established. But then on a more positive note, Venus is sextiling Jupiter at the very end of Aries. So this deals with themes of luck, where you could be feeling more enthusiastic, more excited. And there's a social energy to go out and meet new people. And full moons are times where you can get out there, celebratory times, where there's a lot of positive feelings and joy with the Venus sextile Jupiter, where you can go out and meet new people, especially, from different backgrounds, and, learn from them. And Venus and Jupiter are the two benefics in astrology, so they deal with pleasure. So having a lot of pleasure, experiencing a lot of pleasure, indulging in, food and, things like that, while not overdoing it. This is a wonderful time to have fun, and, enjoy life and really see all of the blessings in your life. Because going back to that idea of Taurus, when we're releasing the old stuff that doesn't serve us, we can move into love, peace, and also gratitude for what we have in our lives, which is the theme of Taurus. And so I really hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that this lunar eclipse really serves you. Have a wonderful time, and it may involve going into those swampy waters to then clean out and see what doesn't serve you, what you need to see, and getting to the truth of what you don't want to look at, what you're resistant to look at. But the more you resist, the more it persists. And it is about facing the truth. And now, with this release, you're closing the gates on one particular chapter, and you're opening the gates and the doors to a new beginning. Thank you for listening.